All right, you know where we're going. It is Omega today. And holy moly, is Omega a fun and intense battle every single time we fight. So, we have our Berserker on the ground because Omega has some nasty counterattacks, including Mustard Bomb, Rocket Punch, Circle, which can just remove a character from battle entirely. So this is going to be a solo battle. The other characters are there mostly just to provide some early battle buffs, and then that Black Mage is going to solo X-Death by herself. So yes, little Kryl there, Kara, is going to take on X-Death pretty much all by her lonesome. The mixes you see us applying, and I'm not sure what order we've done them in. That one was Dragon Armor, that puts on Protect and Shell. You've also seen the Giant Drink that doubles her hit points, which is a little bit messy with Surge Beam around, as you'll see, because Surge Beam is based on your max HP, so you take more damage from Surge Beam when you have that done. And I did that in case I ate a random Mustard Bomb. So with Shell and with Giant Drink, you can eat a Mustard Bomb from Omega. Without that, you can't. So I'm trying to avoid Mustard Bombs if I can, but in case I take one, that's there. And I have some elixirs, and I have some other things I can heal up with after Surge Beam, so it's not a huge problem that we've done that. I'm also doing things like Resist Fire. I've done things like the Dragon Kiss, which gives you heavy status, so things like Circle, which he can use, and also like Delta Attack and Blaster. A few of those really nasty attacks, they can't hit you if you are Dragon type. I believe that was Resist Fire right there, was the Ether Eyedrop Resist Fire. So just before he used Flamethrower, we put on Resist Fire, and now we're just doing Dragon Powers to boost her level by 20. As long as the other characters are alive, now that she has all the buffs that she needs, Dragon Armor, she's got the Giant Drink, she's been hasted, because the wall ring that she's wearing is really important. The Reflect Ring is really important, so the first one we needed to do was haste. So, I guess to sum it up, you've seen Haste, Giant Drink, Dragon Power, Dragon Armor, Resist Fire, and then a bunch of level buffs. Now that those other characters are down, I'm going to speed the video up to 1.5x speed, just so this video isn't quite as long. This is going to be our first actual attack on Omega. That was a targeting, so that means that the next thing that he does is going to be targeted at himself because he bounced targeting off of us. So that's really kind of him to do. I appreciate that. So for when he reacts with HP damage, he does two things. The first one is 2/3 Rocket Punch, 1/3 Mustard Bomb. Then the second thing is 2/3 Rocket Punch, 1/3 Circle. Circle removes one of your characters from battle entirely. So it's not even an instant death. It's worse than that because you can't bring them back into the battle. If you remember Ruby Weapon from FF7, it's similar to the quicksand move that boss does. So now we're kind of in a holding pattern here. Rainbow Wind there can put her in mute status, and I'm thinking she also can get the blind status from things. That's not a huge problem for us. What we're waiting for is that targeting, and when targeting bounces off of our Reflect Ring, it goes right back to him. That was not a reflected Rainbow Wind, that was him trying to use that on himself, because the targeting was still in effect. So his next attack and his counters will be targeting at himself. So I'm drinking some elixirs. I've got plenty. That was sadly a Atomic Ray that was bounced back up. Next one's going to be Surge Beam. So here's his whole script is an ability. So it's Atomic Ray, Delta Attack, or Blaster, which is instant death. Then Surge Beam. Then another ability, either Rainbow Wind, Emission, which is the fire-breathing thing, or Atomic Ray, and then another Surge Beam, and then he does two things in a row, and then he does targeting, and then it's Rainbow Wind, Emission, Atomic Ray. So that's the pattern that you'll see. So it goes something and then Surge Beam, something, Surge Beam, then two somethings. So there's Delta Attack. And usually when you see a prompt pop up that he tries, that means that he tried to target us with something like Circle or Blaster that couldn't hit us because we're heavy. Heavy gives you basically boss status. The music you're hearing here is from OC Remix. It is from Final Fantasy V, The Fabled Warriors. Right now we're listening to the Berserker, theme of the Berserker by Sixto Sounds. Sixto Sounds composed a couple of albums based on FF5 on OC Remix. Very highly recommended to check those out. So there's another Rainbow Wind. We're in mute status, but it's really just for a few ticks. And the mix that I tried to do there with the Black Mage was earlier. That was a couple of potions. I thought that was the X potion mix, and it turned out that was just a regen mix. So I have figured out now that a potion and ether gives you the X potion, which cures you up to full. So instead of drinking elixirs all the time, I can use my ethers basically as elixirs. And so whenever the targeting comes down, it'll bounce off of us, and then we bounce off a Bolt 3 spell onto Omega. Hope that that's clear here, even in the Japanese version. You can attack him without the targeting. The problem that I would run into, though, if I did that, is a Mustard Bomb targeted back at me, which would do 1,500, and then a Surge Beam immediately after that before I could get an attack. So I pretty much have to wait for that, because it's possible that I could get the sneak and attack in, but if Mustard Bomb rolled, which we haven't seen because he can actually use it on himself and it does decent damage to himself. He hasn't done it. He's been doing rocket punches and circles, I guess, exclusively. I mean, there's a 1 in 3 chance that he'll do Mustard Bomb when he does a counterattack. So here's another targeting. So this way, if he does a Mustard Bomb, looks like those were both rocket punches. And then he tries to do a Rainbow Wind after that. And so here I'm sneaking in a couple of other buffs. I'm sneaking in a couple of Dragon Powers, just to be a little bit cheeky while I'm waiting for the next targeting. Delta attack, right there. We'll actually see a Delta attack that does some damage to Omega. So like it gets a really high roll on its damage and actually overcomes his magic defense. Pretty cool. You also may have seen way earlier Split Shell on Omega. So you saw a little hammer hit Omega. That's another chemist mix that cuts their defense numbers in half for magic and for physical. You obviously have diminishing returns with that because it just cuts it in half and half and half and half and half. It's not a straight subtraction, so it's a little bit better to boost your own level. But 1 or 2 Split Shells are usually pretty good to use on Omega. Here's another Bolt 3. So Omega has 55,530, okay, 55530 hit points. So doing a little bit between 8,000 and 9,000, I'll need a few attacks, 1 or 2 more to take him out. That's why I turned the fast forward on. I believe we changed songs. This is also from Sixto Sound. This is the theme of Bart's. Pretty good to put in your videos if you ever want to do that. Very cool stuff. I'll put a link to the videos in the description below, to the albums, I should say. So I'm basically just mixing X potions whenever I hit a Surge Beam and waiting for targeting. And all the stuff in between is just kind of moot. So there's mute. Doesn't really matter. Here's another Surge Beam. There's an X potion. You have to be very deliberate and very careful. And one menuing mistake with Omega is enough to usually end the battle. And that's why I did not record live commentary with this, because this battle, especially using chemist mixes like this, requires so much focus. It's very difficult for me to actually do commentary when I'm fighting Omega. So I hope you can understand this is recorded in post. That also let me do this fast forward thing. So we see it at 1.5 times the speed. We'll be done in 10 minutes here instead of like 16 minutes, I think the battle actually was. A lot of it is this. So it would have been quite repetitive. Instead, we get to enjoy some of this really cool original music based on the Final Fantasy V soundtrack. And that regen is actually doing really nice work to kind of overcome the leak status from Surge Beam. So if you've played this game, you know that Surge Beam does half of your max HP, and it puts you in leak status. So that's what makes it really, really dangerous, because you'll go to half HP and then you'll leak down. I could have skipped the giant drink in this particular battle, and as our music comes back and we go back to normal speed, you know that this is going to be OVER. I could have skipped the giant drink in this one because we never saw a Mustard Bomb. We never saw one on Omega, and we never saw one come at us. But I wanted to have that flexibility just in case we ever did get into any shenanigans or get in any trouble with things. We could have been a little bit more optimized by just keeping her at our regular hit points because there's the Omega Metal. Because Surge Beam would have still just done half of her max HP, then she could have healed with a regular high potion instead of having to mix an X potion. So, slightly suboptimal right there, but I will take a solo Black Mage with mix anytime against Omega.